A bananas round 2 at Roland Garros 2025. Lot of chaos, a lot of great matches, and a lot of players in the third round who you would not expect to be there. Gil Gross here. It's going to be a notebook dump style, a round 2 recap where we're going to go through a lot of these matches and results. Not all of them in incredible detail, won't be unbelievably thorough, but we will cast a wide net. And there are a lot of things that need to be covered because, again, some noteworthy results on for round 2 at RG. Going to start with day 5. That was Thursday, so the more recent results, and then we'll go back to yesterday, which was Wednesday. I woke up to a lot of comebacks in action, and let's start there. Henrique Rocha, 20-year-old from Portugal, qualifier, slam main draw debut, world number 200, is down 2-0 against Jakub Mensik, and he comes back. Now, I caught end of the 4th and the 5th, and what I'll say is this about Rocha. He was nearly flawless. His weapons were big. Mensik was not cramping or anything like that. He just got beat straight up. You almost expect, because I watched Jakub in the first round. I mentioned it on the show that there was a physical wobble in the 4th set, and I really thought that if Mensik didn't wrap up, and I'm blanking on his opponent, if Mensik didn't win that first round match in 4, I think he was going to lose in 5. So I was already kind of a little bit concerned if things got physical. But watching the 5th set, not that Jakub was necessarily at 100% speed and power in the legs. I'm not quite going that far, but he could move. And Rocha beat him again, straight up. And he beat him badly. Mensik did not have a single break point in sets 4 or 5. Big picture, Jakub with some, it sounds crazy to say this about a 19-year-old, already a really ugly pattern here. He has played 6 slams. He has lost in 5 sets the last 5 times. And the score lines of these 5th sets, we've got a 6-3, 6-2, 6-love, 6-2, 6-3. So none of these 5th sets are particularly close. Maybe a couple of one-break sets in there with the 6-3s. 3 of these losses are from up 2 sets to none. His career record, when he wins the first 2 sets, his career record is 2-3. 2 wins, 3 losses. Obviously, it's unbelievably early. He's only played 6 majors in his career, as I said. I don't think I brought it up in my first round show, but when Felix lost at the Australian Open from 2-0 up, and I'm like, wait, this is happening a lot to Felix. What is the average here? Like, what's good? What's bad? How often should a player win when they're up 2-0? And the number is 96%. Based on over 2 decades of data, players in general, when they go up 2 sets to none, win about 96% of the time. Felix lost another from 2-0 up here, so he's down to 17-5 in his career. And my point there is like, oh, that's got to be in his head a little bit at this point. For Mensik, it's a lot earlier, but it's even worse. Now, here's why you don't necessarily go full panic mode with Jakub. First of all, he's 19. He's not fully baked in the legs, so the physicality aspect of it is like a really easy explanation. You can just say, like, look, he's not really strong enough to play 5-setters, and that's why he's losing all these 5-setters. And that's one sort of way to look at it, that he'll just develop physically, and then this problem might go away. But I think the bigger thing that you want to look to if you want to get to the positive side with Mensik is he has a lot of really great clutch stats to sort of counter or offset the fact that he's looked really tight in some of these majors. He is, for his career, 33-17 in tiebreaks. He has, of course, been a big-time performer against top players, an 8-5 record against top 10 opposition, and he's already a Masters 1000 champion. So for all those reasons, I think, Jakub can sleep soundly at night. Mensik fans can sleep at least somewhat soundly at night. But yeah, the majors have been really frustrated. It's going to be a Rocha Bublik third round instead of a Mensik de Minaur third round. How about that? Bublik also comes back from down 2 sets to love against Alex de Minaur. Are you kidding me? Alex had made the second week of the last 6 slams. Alex was 3-0 against Bublik. And heading in, there was a retirement in there after 2 games, so almost more like 2-0. But heading into the third set of this match, the total sets were 6-0 for de Minaur. And Bublik wins the next 3 to turn it around. Where do we start? For Alex, one of the things that I talked about coming into the season is first serve percentage, and I was wondering if that was going to improve from a 2024 season, which was, of course, a career year for de Minaur, but I couldn't help but notice that his success rate on first serves in was the worst in the top 50, and in the last 52 weeks, it is still the worst in the top 50. It hasn't actually gotten better in 2025. It's gotten worse in 2025. Last 52 weeks, 53.9% first serves in. Again, worst in the top 50. And here it was even worse. So you always got to put it in context. What's a below average serving day for an individual? And for I guess, a higher percentage first serve guy, a below average first serve day might be 58% or something like that. If you're averaging like 62, well, what's a bad first serve day for de Minaur? If his average is 54%, it looks like this, where he makes only 48% of his first serves in a 5-set match. And for Bublik, in a matchup like this, you kind of wonder, how is he breaking serve against de Minaur when, given how many rallies you normally have to win in order to win return games? But these missed first serves just open up that avenue for Bublik to get on offense right away, and then it completely changes your complexion, or the complexion of how you're imagining Bublik might be able to break some serve against Alex de Minaur. I missed a lot of this match, but I did talk to Mike Cation, who was on the call, got a little synopsis from him, and it really checked out with the things that I've been seeing recently with Bublik, when he's at his best, when he's at his worst. Bublik first 2 sets was just drop-shotting everything, not willing to hang in points. And I've seen that so many times with Bublik, when he's just not confident in his ability to hit over the ball, and he won't hit over 3 forehands in a row, particularly not without, injecting crazy pace. And he doesn't have that comfort level. He's constantly either chipping deep or hitting drop shots. And it's like, my man, can we drive the ball? Can we keep our forehand grip and drive the ball a couple times? But sometimes when he's not confident, he just doesn't feel great about doing that. And de Minaur is a terrible guy to drop shot. He's an awful player to drop shot. He hugs the baseline. He's quick as a cat. He's competent at the net. There is nothing about Alex de Minaur that is drop shottable. So if you're Bublik and you're constantly forcing it, you're going to get picked apart and eaten alive. Third set, and Bublik, I might add, in all of his post-match press, was talking about how it was an 11 a.m. start, and he's not a morning person, and he can't wake up that early. Anyway, by the third set, he woke up. And he decided to play, and Cation said he decided to play like a normal person. Okay. That means putting the drop shot away, unless it was open, and hitting over the ball and trading from the back of the court. He challenged de Minaur to do a little bit more in order to win. And we know that, Bublik at his best, what does that look like? He's serving huge, but he's willing to do some counterpunching. A lot of variety, some off-pace balls, injecting pace, just being really unpredictable. But, he moves well enough and he's skilled enough from the back of the court. He doesn't need to go like flat out point finishing mode all the time. And he got really comfortable moving and kind of hanging in there and going toe-to-toe with de Minaur from the back of the court. Let's remember, Bublik won the Turin Challenger in Italy, which is not nothing. So he's got some confidence on the clay right now. Rally length stuff was interesting here. 5 shots or more, Bublik ended up +4 for the match. 4 shots or less, de Minaur ended up +6. So yes, Demon for the match won 2 more points than Bublik. Happens, somewhat often. I mean, it's not the norm, but it happens all the time in a 5-set match where the loser ends up winning a couple more points. Nothing to go crazy about. De Minaur in press after the match was talking a lot about how burnt out he was feeling. And Alex he's just not the kind of guy to bring up excuses when he loses. Like, it is exceptionally rare. So there are some players who, of course, they lose and normally they kind of throw something out there that sort of takes away the sting from their loss or sort of softens the blow. And I really haven't seen that from de Minaur in all my years of watching him. And I've even seen him, I think, play through injury and not talk about it. But in this case, he was like, hey, man, I'm struggling here. He says the last 2 years he's only had 2 days off after the year ends because he plays Davis Cup. The value of Davis Cup is really high for de Minaur, as it is for a lot of the Aussies. It's just how they're raised. Like, they are trained and raised to care about Davis Cup a lot. It is in the culture. So he's playing Davis Cup. And then, well, what's the most important and impactful, particularly emotionally, part of his season? It's January. So you're going to play Davis Cup into the beginning of December, and you need to peak for the start of January. Think about that. There's no offseason. And that's why Alex was like, hey, I've only gotten 2 days off each of the last 2 years. And I always feel for the Aussie guys in general with the travel because it's so hard for them to go home. So it's not easy. However, the one thing I look at with this whole issue and the calendar being long and de Minaur feeling burnt out, which is, yeah, it's completely understandable. One thing. Why is he playing so much in February? He played Rotterdam, he played Doha, he played Dubai. 3 tournaments in February. And that's when there's no mandatories in Feb. A lot of top players take it off for a reason. And you don't need to kill yourself that time of year. Then after that, the Masters 1000 start flowing, and you pretty much got to play. Pretty much. But that's your window, I think, to get a little rest. And he could almost have a little offseason there, which is something that some players have tried in the past. Yeah, there are downsides to sort of doing the stop-start thing in the middle of the season. And I'll also mention appearance fees. You got to remember, appearance fees factor in. And I know for a fact that de Minaur got one in, I think it was whichever tournament intersected with Acapulco. I don't know if it was Doha or Dubai, but de Minaur was actually defending champion in Acapulco. Didn't go there to defend the title because it was either Doha or Dubai gave him a way bigger appearance fee, and that's why Alex went there. So this is the thing. I'll move on in a moment. Sorry to go long on this. I just think it's really interesting. Here's the thing always when it comes to players talking about the schedule being too long. Are you willing to give up a little money for the schedule to be shorter? And that is kind of I think a macro topic that needs to be brought up more within this kind of discussion, but also on an individual level, even if there's no policy or schedule reform at all. On an individual level, players are having to make that decision. Do I want to take February off? I'm probably making $1 million less. Like, with appearance fees included, you might make maybe not $1 million, but it's a good chunk of change that you're leaving on the table. All right. Another wild one. Just absolutely insane match. Let's talk about Arthur Fils versus Jaume Munar. So Fils wins the first 2 sets. Very physical. And he hit the energy wall at the start of the 3rd set. Face first, square, flush. I mean, you can't overstate how much Fils hit a wall. It was so bad that it almost looked like he was injured. And he did get a medical timeout. He got his back worked on. And I think a lot of people were looking at it and they're like, is it his back? Is he injured? Is he just tired? Is he cramping? The more I watched it, because in the beginning I wasn't sure. The more I watched it, I was like, all right, he's not injured. He's just spent. He's got nothing left and he's cramping. So what does he do? He does the old, I'm going to rest while playing. He does not move in the fourth set. As soon as you start to replenish, relax, breathe, and rest, not play physical, not move all that much, you give yourself a chance to recover from cramps, and that's the benefit from being 2 sets to love up. So start of the fifth set, it wasn't surprising that he flipped a switch, right? You could have been watching and you could have been like, whoa, what's going on? Like, Fils can suddenly move. It's like, yeah, because he was resting. He was resting during the fourth set. Let's call it what it is. And there's nothing unsportsmanlike about it. It's not playing possum. It's literally doing what you have to do in order to give yourself the best chance to physically recover. So I have zero issue with it whatsoever. And by the way, after the match, I did watch his interview with Prakash for Tennis Channel, and he said he was cramping. So it wasn't an injury, it was cramping. And he was able to give it a push in the fifth because he saw a finish line and he had basically rested. Now, Munar did a really good job in the third and the fourth set, focusing on his side of the court and playing consistent without getting over passive, putting the ball in corners. And, he really did as well as you can possibly do to take advantage of an opponent who's highly compromised. And I was kind of thinking to myself while watching, wow, it's kind of amazing that he doesn't look more tight. That's what I was thinking, especially in the fourth set. So I thought Munar's level was incredibly high, and we know how tough it is sometimes to play an injured opponent. But for Munar, you also had a ton of scar tissue coming into this match. He was 0 for 10 in second round matches at majors. Now he's 0 for 11. So I'm like, wow, it's amazing that he doesn't look tighter until he did. Because in the fifth set, you can sum it up like this. It's pretty simple. If Munar isn't going to hit the ball, then Fils is going to hit forehand winners. Like, that's how it was. Munar was hitting slow and short and central. And I think if you, it was bad. It was really, really bad. He couldn't get anything on the ball. He wasn't making a lot of errors, but he was allowing Fils to tee off. So Fils hit 14 forehand winners. I don't know what the total winners is. Just let me actually try to pull that up. Fils hit 14 forehand winners in the fifth set. Here we go. Roland Garros website is pretty slow, unfortunately. All right, so total winners was 69 to 43. Fils made 84 unforced errors. But, I don't like looking at the match stats in a match like this because to me it just doesn't mean much. There were 2 sets where Fils literally wasn't really playing tennis. So there's that. But look at these. These set 5 stats are unbelievable. Munar hit 6 winners to 3 unforced errors. On paper, you might be like, he played a good set. But this is where the stats lie. Because if you're Joao Munar and you hit a terrible short ball in the middle of the court for no reason, and Fils hits a winner, it doesn't reflect badly on your winners to unforced errors ratio. It just reflects well on Fils. Fils hits 20 winners in set 5 to 18 unforced errors. All right? Look, let's also give some respect. That's pretty amazing, though. Out of 20 winners, 14 are forehand ground strokes. He didn't hit a single ace. So that's amazing. That's 20 winners without an ace in one set of tennis. Wow. Look, he's got a special forehand. You guys know, maybe not all of you know, it is on average the fastest and the spinniest on tour. And in a moment where he's physically suffering, he's kind of let go of expectation to win the match, and he knows he has to stay offensive to conserve energy and, he knows he can't really rely on his legs. With all of those circumstances, he's going to make some magic happen with that forehand. There's no doubt about it. That's what he's going to do. The 4-all game, super memorable. Fils was serving, and he missed 2 bounce overheads the exact same way. It was unbelievable. It was unreal. You would have thought it was an instant replay. Just overheads, missed. And honestly, they both missed by quite a lot. And that helped Munar get to a break point at 4-all in the 5th. And on one of these break points, was it the only break point in the game? I don't know. But I wrote this one down because it was just a perfect microcosm of the 5th set. Munar pulled Fils out wide, and Fils hit a backhand down the line into Munar's forehand that bled middle. So Munar has a forehand with a lot of open court on the cross. Like if he hits a strong cross-court forehand, he wins the point. And he just spun it right up the middle. Fils recovers his position back into the middle of the court and hits a forehand winner of his own. Nasty cross-court, sharply angled. And I'm like, yep, that pretty much sums it up. Like Munar had a chance to do damage with his forehand. He passed it up completely. And then Fils hurt him with his. Firepower for Arthur Fils, a crazy crowd in Suzanne Lenglen, and relaxation. Although those 3 things are the best friend of a fatigued player, and Fils found all 3. Now, I must say, this is the second straight win where there are some vulnerabilities on display. I talked about it in the first round against Nico Jarry, where Fils was very unclutch in that match. It didn't cost him because he was so much better than Jarry, but he was unclutch. And in this case, well, he hit an energy wall at the start of the 3rd set, so obviously that's not ideal. And when I watch Fils play, this kind of thing concerns me. Like, I've always felt that there's a risk of this because he seems just so strained emotionally and physically on a point-by-point basis. And on the emotional thing, I got to give him credit. He's not super negative. Sometimes he's negative. A lot of the time, it's positive energy. But it's a lot of energy. And as far as how much he's exerting on a shot-by-shot basis physically, it's the most I've seen since Thiem. And Dominic Thiem was the same way, where he was just throwing everything into shot after shot after shot. And Thiem had a huge fatiguing problem for a long time in his career. The only thing that I think maybe you could argue that Thiem never got over that. Like Djokovic was able to beat him a couple times just by wearing him out. You think of the 5th set at the Australian Open final that one year. Thiem played a bad 5th set. He was done. Like he just didn't have the energy in that 5th. Just an example. So Fils is kind of the same way, where he's just throwing everything at every shot, and that won't change. So when it comes to that, like that's just going to be how he plays. There's no changing that, and he just needs to get really, really fit in order to be able to do that. The emotional energy stuff, that can be cut down, and the nervous energy, that can be cut down on a ton, in my opinion. And I think he's going to have to do that eventually. And I was watching this match, and I was thinking, look, if he loses to Munar here, it's going to be a massive lesson learned, potentially at least. It could be a match that he really learns a lot from, and he says, okay, we need to make some tweaks here. It'll be interesting to see. Like, hopefully he still learns from it, even though he wins. It's a lot harder to learn from a win. Draw for Fils remains brutal. It's Rublev next, and then it's probably Sinner. Let's go to Fonseca. This was a pretty straightforward, straight set win for Joao. He makes his first 3rd round at a slam. And he does it at 18. He does it in only his 2nd major main draw. These are all, this is happening quicker than it normally does for people. And we shouldn't lose sight of that regardless of what happens in the next round. Even if it's one-sided in the next round against Jack Draper. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. In the first set tiebreak, I thought the serving came through big time for Fonseca. He has a good enough serve where it won't always be there to give him a lift or bail him out or help him out. It's not that good, but it will come through sometimes. I saw this in Phoenix a good amount, where there will be some moments where Fonseca is not made to play all that much because his serve does have enough juice to get it done on his own. And, down the stretch of this first set tiebreak, 3-all, he hits an ace. 5-4, he makes a first serve that sets up a couple of attacking forehands. He hits a forehand inside-in winner with tons of margin. And by the way, another thing I'll mention here, because I'm just remembering this forehand inside-in winner, it was basically through the middle of the court. And one thing I was seeing over and over again in this match is whenever Fonseca had like an attacking middle forehand, Herbert was guessing. The amount that Herbert was guessing one way or another was, it spoke volumes about how big Fonseca hits the ball. And yes, Herbert isn't the quickest cat you'll ever see, but like anytime he drops a ball short, suddenly he's guessing. And if he was playing somebody who he felt confident in absorbing their power, he wouldn't have to guess so much. Set point, Fonseca ace, 139 miles per hour. Now, second set, I thought Fonseca looked even more comfortable, and he was applying a lot of pressure, but Herbert served great, especially into Fonseca's forehand. And it's just funny how this works sometimes. I'm watching this set, and I'm like, man, Joao's not making forehand returns. And in my opinion, he was swinging too big on it. I've seen him block returns in the past, and I was thinking that maybe it's the intimidation factor where Herbert will serve and volley. That's why Fonseca doesn't want to block his forehand returns, which probably would have been a smart idea otherwise, or just the net rushing in general that Fonseca didn't want to deal with. So he was taking really big cuts on the forehand, and I'm like, man, this might cost him the set because he's not making forehand returns. Well, let's go to the second set tiebreak. 4-5, Herbert serving. Ad side, he goes T. Fonseca, stretch forehand return, crushed deep down the middle. Next ball, forehand winner. So basically a return +1. 4-6. Herbert, wide serve into Fonseca's forehand. Joao hits it flush, pings it hard and low against a serve and volleying Herbert, and it's a half volley for PHH. Fonseca backhand pass down the line on the next ball. So it was just so funny to me. I was thinking that my analysis for the set was that Fonseca was taking too big a swing on his forehand return, and then bang, bang, the forehand return just comes through with two beauties, and he wins the set. So great performance there from Fonseca. And since he's playing Draper next, let's go to Draper Monfils, then we'll finish up the day on Djokovic versus Moutet. So Draper Monfils, another night session in Chatrier. Where do I want to start? Another great show by Monfils, by the way. I think that Gael, let me start with Gael, because then I'll get to kind of why Draper won and the things he did well. I think Monfils has gotten so much better with his first serve and his forehand, to the point where as much as you're seeing the defense and the highlight reel sort of cat and mouse and the movement and power that enables all the kind of defense to offense stuff that Monfils does so well, he really does do a much better job than he used to for most periods in his career of just having intent on that first forehand and jumping on top of points. So I wanted to mention that. But the Monfils fatigue in this match just made it so up and down and up and down. And like, don't get me wrong, Gael Monfils matches have that generally, but in this match, the problem was he couldn't sustain those highs for long enough, as long as he needed to. Like in the fourth set, for example, he's serving for the fourth set at 5-4. Like, this is a moment where if you have anything in the reserves, you tap into them. Draper had some forehands cross court in this game where he did a good job of breaking the sideline and he achieved great width. And Monfils just didn't have the legs to range left outside the single sideline and hit strong backhands. And on a big point like that, in a big game like that, when Monfils can't move into the corners. It's pretty bad. And it caught up with him. Obviously, the 5-setter against Hugo Dellien in the first round. Incredible shock absorbing by Draper as well. When Monfils tried to get more offensive, which he did, particularly with his forehand. Like he tried to redline it. Obviously, he wanted to dictate a little bit more at times. And Draper's tough to hit through. He's a really good shock absorber. And when Monfils goes all out on his forehand, he really gets as much juice as anybody. Draper looks so good soaking it up. And these are the matchups that are toughest for Fonseca. The guys who are going to just, again, be able to do some shock absorbing and wear Fonseca down a little bit. But I think for Joao, what we're going to see against Draper, and I just felt this way watching him again, like the big picture question is, where's the biggest gap right now between Fonseca and a top 5 player? And in my opinion, it's the quickness around the court. So Fonseca was fending off Hurkacz's attacks very well. I noted in that match, the defense was really good. But Draper gets more on the ball. He's much better at opening up the court with angles, particularly on his forehand. Much higher RPM, just, again, creates angles much, much better than Hurkacz. And I think we're going to see how hard it is for Joao to play defense against these top players. That's what I think we're going to see. But anyway, back to Draper Monfils. Draper's ground stroke balance was really important, all right? Because he would build with forehand cross court. And Monfils didn't want to defend with his backhand back cross court into Draper's forehand. Understandably. Monfils knows, like, his backhand against Draper's forehand, that's bad news. So we're going to try to avoid it. We're going to guide a lot of backhands down the line when we're defending. And Draper was just so awesome at attacking that down the line, that slower down the line defensive ball with his feet, taking it early to take away from Monfils' time to recover his position, and either ripping it cross court or, even more so at times, hitting the backhand drop shot behind Monfils' split step. So you can imagine Gael the righty, he's in his backhand corner, backhand down the line, neutralization. Now he's trying to desperately get back to the middle to his right, and Draper takes the ball real early and drop shots down towards his left. And it's a really tough one for Monfils to cover because he's getting wrong-footed. And it's like all of his energy is to try to get to the middle, and now suddenly he needs to go the other way and up inside the court to get the drop shot. That was a really good play. But it did seem like Draper was pressing quite a bit mentally in this match, and it's just so easy to forget. This is the first slam where he's playing with some real expectation, other than maybe Wimbledon last year where there was a lot of buzz with Jack because he played a good grass court season in the lead up to Wimbledon. And I think he was the top British man. He had just overtaken Norrie. Well, how did that go, right? He lost in straight sets to Cam Norrie. So, still, look, Jack has handled pressure so well this year at the Masters 1000s. Would it shock me if at a certain point we're looking at, best of 5 major and we're thinking, okay, Draper maybe didn't handle that so well. He still needs to kind of work through some kinks with nerves. No, it wouldn't shock me. And I feel like maybe we saw a little bit of that in this match. All right, Djokovic Moutet. Straight set win, Novak. Again, really important that Djokovic gets off the court, and this was physical. This match passed 3 hours. Even though the first couple sets were lopsided on scoreline, they were still somewhat lengthy, and I thought this was physical tennis. If Moutet won the third set, which he very nearly did, wouldn't have been ideal. I don't think Novak would have lost the match at any rate, but definitely a big energy saver to get that done in straights. Moutet is a very specific kind of test and challenge. Now, he's not some sort of nightmare second-round matchup. I mean, there's a reason he only has one top 10 win in his career, which is a little bit surprising. I would think he'd have more, but that particular number doesn't lie, right? And the reason is His first serve is 110 miles per hour on average. His backhand is severely limited. And those two things, like there's just, unless you have a bunch of other things going for you, Moutet has some other things going for him, certainly. But, it's hard to overcome those two things. A severely limited backhand and a really, you're a lightweight server. But he does some things at an elite level, and that's why he's a top 100 player year in and year out. And that's being one of the best defenders in the world. And because he's one of the best defenders in the world, finishing points against him, it requires a lot. You've got to bring a lot to the table offensively. And Novak, he really did a great job doing that stuff. Mainly the net play. And that's always the plan A against somebody who is quick as lightning, who is committed to making the extra ball back 100% of the time. A guy with unbelievable defensive racket skills who will literally throw up defensive lobs for days. What do you got to do? You got to get to the net and make him try to pass you, and that's where you're finishing. Novak was at the net, 3-set match, 69 times, folks. He was 54 for 69 at the net, and that's an unreal win rate. 78% win rate against someone who's drop shotting a ton, because that's one of the things that will really drive down net play, and I almost wish they kept the statistics separately, but when Moutet is dragging Djokovic to the net against basically on Moutet's terms, and now Novak is having to dig a ball from down low below the level of the net, and sometimes Moutet has a good look at the next pass. I mean, that can drive down your net efficiency, whereas it's almost inaccurate to call that a net point because, you weren't really playing offense at the net, you were playing defense at the net, which is a different thing. So anyway, I just thought Novak was really good about coming forward and finishing. And I noted some really big points here where not only did he come to the net to finish, but he went to the wing that Moutet doesn't pass very well off of, which is the backhand. So set point in the third set. Djokovic, good first serve, hard forehand inside out. Moutet defends, spinny forehand cross court, a lot of height. Djokovic doesn't let him push it. He doesn't let that ball push him back. He takes it early on the rise, backhand down the line, approach shot. And Moutet, actually running to his right, has a slice grip. And Djokovic is at the net. Well, that's trouble. Moutet in his peripheral vision sees that Djokovic is at the net, and he slices it into the net. If Novak isn't forward, there's no way Moutet is slicing that ball into the net. It's not going to happen because Moutet wouldn't have to keep that ball low. He'd actually be aiming for the baseline. He'd be going for depth. If anything, he's missing that long, not in the net. So that was a great set point save in the third. And then I also noted, there's probably more where this came from, but first set, 5-3, 30-all. So this is a high leverage point. He doesn't want to face a break point. Maybe the first set gets back on serve. So he's going to go to a play that he trusts. He hits his slice serve out wide, Novak, and he serves in volleys. And Moutet, backhand pass, he puts it in the net again. This one he drove, but Moutet knew that he was screwed unless he got it ultra low. He was going to have to hit a net grazer because Novak was well positioned at the net. Moutet was way off the court, and he just doesn't have the two-handed backhand to pass from that position. So Djokovic, he knows that's a percentage play for him, and there's a reason he kept it in his back pocket for such a big point. If you have a limitation, Novak has what he has what it takes to exploit it, period. Moutet, deep return position against Djokovic's slice serve wide on the deuce. It was rough. As quick as Moutet is in recovering his position, which is, oh my God, so quick, it's still exceptionally difficult for Moutet to keep his backhand out of trouble. And you saw the same thing when Novak was angling his forehand cross court and breaking the sideline with these sharply angled forehands. Moutet, he can't get around the right side of the ball. He just doesn't have the right wrist to do it. In fact, that's a surgically repaired right wrist. And I just don't think it's as flexible and malleable as you want it to be still. So he just doesn't really, again, get around the outside of the ball on his cross court. So he kind of either needs to slice or throw up a moon ball. And that's the only way he's recovering. And look, variety is great, but these are balls that Novak is going to start to get comfortable with as the match goes on. And I think that's exactly what happened. Although the third set was the most competitive set. And a lot of it was down to Novak. He slowed down. He got a little bit sloppy on some mid-court attacks that ended up playing a role. But he slowed down after he got some treatment for blisters on his foot. So I thought that was a factor. And Moutet also did a much better job of sort of letting his forehand go when he had a chance to do it, really kind of ramping up that acceleration and hitting that forehand at 100% instead of 80 or 90%. I thought that was a big deal for Moutet because that's his weapon from the back. That's what he needs. He needs inside out and inside in forehands for the most part. And then sometimes the down the line, he can start to time that really well. But unfortunately, what got Moutet partially back into that set, which is hit the forehand bigger, it got him in trouble in the tiebreak because the first few points he missed big forehands, and that was really all she wrote. As far as the blisters, I think two things are true. Is that a result of Novak not playing a lot of matches all of clay court season and then suddenly playing Geneva, going all the way, to championship Saturday there, playing the final, and then going to Roland Garros and then playing best of five? Yeah, that's why he has blisters. If you're used to playing, your skin gets all calloused up, you don't get blisters. I mean, sometimes you do, but normally, again, look, who else is dealing with blisters in Rome? Jannik Sinner. Okay, this is what happens when you put the skin on your extremities through stuff that it's not used to. You get blisters. So, of course, it's a result of that. What does it mean? Is it something that threatens Novak in a big way? I mean, I don't think so. I've seen at times blisters really take out a tennis player, but more often I've seen a player just be able to fight through them. And look, this is Djokovic. He's tough as nails. It is a slam. The willpower is there. I don't think the blisters are going to get in the way, but, little physical drama, first week of majors, that's been pretty typical for Djokovic. And, sometimes eventually it feels like it's taken a chunk out of him later on. So, it's a little bit of a concern. But overall, and I try to not make conclusions in the first three rounds of a major because you can really get burned doing that. That said, this looks like Miami Novak. It does. Deadly spot serving, excellent attacking off the ground. Before the third set, moments where Djokovic showed off exceptional speed that I was really impressed with. So the level looks amazing. The draw is amazing. Shapovalov lost. I can't say I'm shocked. Even against Filip Misolic, who is a qualifier, ranked 153, career high around 120. Claim to fame is Kitzbühel final 2022, home country. He was a wild card. That was a really awesome story, awesome week. He beat Shapo in 5, won the first 2 sets in tie breaks. Dennis is 5-11 in tie breaks this year, 96-111 in his career, which I feel like is quite an underperformance for Shapovalov as far as his overall tiebreak record is concerned. But the Shapo win, just to give you an idea, it's the best of Misolic's career. 2-6 lifetime against top 50 opposition. If Novak wins that one, then he gets either Cam Norrie or Jacob Fernley. So draws don't get much better. And if I'm kind of re-predicting Novak, I can't see any world, really, in which he loses before the quarterfinals at this point unless he gets injured. I can't see it. I think his level's been great, and I don't think it's fool's gold. I think it's real. So there are still going to be the physical questions, but he's not on upset alert as far as I'm concerned in these next couple rounds. He's just not, because the level of tennis is clearly there. If he plays Zverev, we can revisit that, and we will revisit that later on. Can't unload all my ammo here, huh? All right. That concludes all of our Thursday stuff. So let's go back now to some Wednesday stuff, and let's begin with what is, on paper the biggest upset of the tournament, although not a ton to go over here, and that is Nuno Borges beating Casper Ruud in 4. The last 2 sets were 6-1, 6-love. And this mainly came down to Casper Ruud's right knee. His movement to his right was horrible, and he wasn't really going to win moving like that. He just wasn't. So his right knee was hurt. He didn't retire. He played through it, but that's kind of why he lost. And for Casper, he hadn't lost before the 3rd round at Roland Garros since his debut here 7 years ago. Now, the one thing that I was thinking about watching this, because it was like, it's just bad luck for Casper. And last year in the semis, he had food poisoning. That was also kind of bad luck, but you're in the semis, okay? So it's not the worst thing in the world from a ranking standpoint. Don't get me wrong. I know emotionally it's still very disappointing, maybe even more disappointing. But from a ranking standpoint, and Casper talked about this after the match, this is always a tough blow. But for Ruud, it's one of the big problems with having so much riding on 2 months of the season because your results are so clay court skewed. It's the don't put your eggs in one basket saying. The hazard of that is you might get injured. Stuff, crazy stuff might happen. You might have terrible draw luck. Who knows? When stuff happens, if it happens to be at that time of year, you get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Ruud, I think, down to 13 in the world live. But overall, I think a successful clay swing for Casper. He got a big trophy. Like, to me, when you haven't won a big title and you win that big title, that to me is a big enough deal that I think Ruud should look back at the clay season and be happy, especially knowing he couldn't have done much about this result. Now, by the way, Borges, ball striking was completely dialed in here. His backhand down the line was pinpoint, and I don't really consider that Nuno's best shot by any stretch, but it was awesome. And he was burning Ruud's compromised movement into that corner beautifully. His tennis insight scores were through the roof. He was a 9.5 performance rating in set 3, and he was not 9.5, I think, again in set 4. Now, I don't know, obviously tennis isn't played in isolation. Like, what Casper's doing on the other side of the net has something to do with that. But it still looked like even if Casper was moving well, it was going to be a good match because of how well Borges was playing. And also the conditions were actually really sapping Ruud's forehand. Very cool temperatures, wet clay, and Casper's forehand wasn't really jumping off the court like you would want it to. So I think it might have been a good match even if Ruud could move. All right, Alcaraz, Marozsan. It's a 4-setter that wasn't as close as your typical 4-setter is. I mean, considering. So first of all, scoreline 6-1, 4-6, 6-1, 6-2. The only set Alcaraz lost, he was 0 for 5 on break points, and he lost at 6-4. And the thing in this matchup, it's like when Carlos plays well, particularly when Carlos plays his best, he's basically breaking every time because Marozsan's serve isn't really doing anything. And I just couldn't really get past that watching this match. I mean, Alcaraz, in fairness, he dominated in all rally lengths. So he dominated short, he dominated long, didn't matter. But what really stands out to me, because I think it can be an equalizer when you're playing a guy like Alcaraz, who is, so difficult to deal with in a neutral rally, particularly on clay. One thing that most players on tour can do is get some first serve damage, get some +1 damage, just to give yourself a little bit of a cushion. And the fact that Marozsan doesn't really have that luxury, even though he's super talented, it makes it really tough on him. He's really talented as an offensive ball striker, but it's still really tough on him because short route. So here's the statistics behind what I'm saying right now. Rally lengths, 1 through 4 shots on Marozsan's serve, 38-30 Fabian. So he did have the edge, but that needs to be lopsided, right? The returner shouldn't be quickly winning points. That should be very rare. And it wasn't for Alcaraz. Here's a much better stat. For Marozsan, 33% of his serve points he was able to win in his first 2 shots. Serve +1, and he wins the point. 33%. For Alcaraz, that same number is 48% in this match, where he only had to hit a serve and then maybe one more shot, and he already won the point. That's almost half of Alcaraz's service points. That might sound like an astronomical number, but you'll see this on the tour. Like, this is somewhat typical. It's something that Marozsan actually stands out to me because he does so many things well. That's one thing that he doesn't do, and I really think that's what he needs to start doing. Average first serve speed for Marozsan, 115 miles per hour, and it's not like he's hitting kick serves to drive that number down. He's actually hitting flat serves, and it's 115. He just doesn't have a fastball. And that makes it very hard against Alcaraz on clay. Playing great, a lot of highlight reel points. He put on a show. Classic Alcaraz performance. I want to talk Tommy Paul Marton Fucsovics. Not a lot of X's and O's. It's not what this match was about. It was about nerves and it was about heart. Tommy loses the first couple sets. He's down 2-0. He does not look good. Physically, he looks actually pretty horrible. They were saying on the broadcast that he might be sick. I still haven't gotten any substantial, I don't know. I feel like they didn't say where they heard that from. So I just don't know if it's probably true. I'm just not, again, they didn't really explain where they got that from. And it wasn't clear to me at the time. Are they speculating or do they know that? I'm not sure. But the movement was definitely not there for Tommy. And it looked more to me like an actual injury because there was specific movements, particularly when he had to move sharply to his left, where it looked like he was in pain every single time he had to do those movements. So he loses the first 2 sets. You've already seen he can't move with full freedom. You're thinking, no chance. This match is over. Injured players don't come back from down 2 sets to love down. And Tommy Paul did it. And it just shows that it's somewhat of a taboo topic in tennis, but I try not to shy away from it. Pain tolerance matters in tennis. Some players fight through this kind of thing. Most players don't. Toughness matters. Tommy showed insane toughness in this match. Frankly, most players in that position, with just how limited Paul was, right? So he has less than his best. That never changed, by the way. It wasn't like in the 5th set he started moving well. No. His movement wasn't good the whole match. That didn't really change his discipline, his decision-making, his effort level, his focus. All of that was still there because he was like, I'm going to do the best I can. And he was rewarded because Fucsovics, trying to close out the 4th set, was nervous as heck. And then at 4-all in the 5th, he was nervous as heck. 2 missed forehands, dumb drop shot, gives the breakaway. Tommy Paul wins the match. And for Fucsovics, it's a tough one. And nerves have plagued him as badly as any player. And obviously it doesn't get super publicized with a player like Fucsovics because it's not like he's in slam finals. And, I guess he's low enough in the rankings where he's never going to get this horrible reputation as a choker, quote unquote. But, he struggles with the nerves and he has his whole career. And he's one of those players, you watch him sometimes and you're like, are you kidding me? This guy's career high is something like 29 in the world. That seems way too low. And yeah, the reason is when he can bring his best tennis. And the fact is, too often it's not at the right times, or he can't summon it when he needs it, unfortunately. Holger Rune had the night session, and he beat Emilio Nava. I was really impressed with the level in this match. I was really impressed. This wasn't some epic match because Holger, got it done somewhat comfortably. But just the quality of the points they were playing left an impression on me. I was impressed with Nava's pace without having to overplay. And I was texting with Mark Lucero, who's Stevie Johnson's former coach, and now he's at USC. And I was texting him because I know that he's known Emilio Nava for a really long time, and I just wanted to get his thoughts. And he said, look, Emilio always hit huge, massive swings, big time pop, but struggled with the ball tolerance and hitting himself out of matches. And he said in particular, when people brought a lot of variety to the table, mixed up rhythm and height, that's where Nava had a lot of trouble dealing with that stuff. And he's gotten much better there. So I thought that was great insight from Mark Lucero. And I saw it. I saw it in this match because Nava showed a lot of rally tolerance. Holger did as well. Rune's shock absorbing was on full display. He was moving around the court effortlessly. He was playing super stable, a very stable, disciplined, counter-punching style that I think, and I've thought this since 2023, it's really tough to beat Rune on clay when he's playing that way. And there's probably nobody whose level impressed me more. I'm not saying he played the best tennis I've seen out of anybody, but there's nobody's level who impressed me more in the first couple rounds than Holger Rune. Period. I thought he was so locked in, so consistent. And for Nava, who also impressed me, I've got one critique. He was going backhand to backhand with Holger a ton. And for me, that's the path of maximum resistance when you're playing Rune. When I'm trading, I want two things. I want errors and I want short balls. Now, Rune's forehand is bigger than his backhand. I don't care about that. Because when I'm playing from neutral, I expect that my ball quality is good enough to stay out of trouble. I'm hitting deep enough in the court with enough on the ball that I'm not going to get attacked. So if I'm not going to get attacked, I want to go, if I trust my ball quality, I go at Rune's forehand. That's where I'm getting more errors and more short balls. That's where I'm profiting in neutral rallies. And Nava played just so much backhand and backhand and backhand. And that's where Holger's just, he's a machine. And Nava couldn't get anywhere. So that's my only critique is I think you have to break that up against Rune. It's particularly when Rune's just in this hyper-disciplined mood. All right? So I'd watch out for Rune at this point. He's honestly sleeper status based on what I've seen so far. I mean, so often it's physically, is he willing to play that style? Like, does he have that in him physically and mentally? Because I think when he plays that way, he's tough to beat. All right, we've got one more thing to talk about. Last thing, it's Tsitsipas against Mateo Gigante. Italians, tell me if I'm saying the name wrong. Gigante, and I will correct it, but I'm pretty sure that's how. So let's start here. Like, could this be a Gigante thing? He beat Elmer Moeller to qualify. Moeller's been crushing the clay court challengers this year. And then Gigante killed Benjamin Hassan in the first round. Lopsided scoreline. And he won the Rome Challenger a few weeks back. So he's definitely got some stuff to him. Top 100 for his career. Not great. 4-13, but he's 3-4 this year. That said, the wins are Botic, Baez on a hard court, Rinderknecht 5 days before his wedding. I just can't imagine that Artur was fully there. In fact, Rinderknecht's match against Sinner was the most inspired I've seen Rinderknecht play all year long. I don't know, like, it was like a completely different Artur as far as I'm concerned. So, look, ultimately, like, I don't think this loss is going to age particularly well for Tsitsipas. I don't. And the concerning part was the firepower here. Tsitsipas is a big, imposing player. Great first serve, great forehand. He's supposed to be dictating against a guy who is 5'10", like looks 170 pounds. He wasn't. He got out-aced by Gigante 9-4. Ground stroke winners 14-10. Mateo Gigante, which was part of that was the backhand disparity, where Mateo's two-hander was actually threatening. Tsitsipas's one-hander was not. Backhand ground stroke winners were 8-0. Drop shot winners, Gigante 10, Tsitsipas 1. And Steph tried drop shots. It's just none of them were winners. Gigante was so fast up to the drop shots. And a lot of it, I think, was about when they were being played. Like, Gigante did a better job of pushing Tsitsipas back than Tsitsipas did Gigante back from a court position standpoint. So when I look at the firepower stats and Tsitsipas isn't winning those, that's eye-popping to me. The other thing was second serve points won for Tsitsipas. 41% in this match. Here's the context. Steph was the best on tour in 2021 at winning points with his second serve. A little bit of a drop-off in 22. I didn't write it down. In 2023, 5th best on tour. 2024, 10th best on tour. This year, he's still good. He's 11th best on tour before Roland Garros matches are factored in. But he was 41%, which would be worst in the top 50. Like, that's a terrible number in this particular match. And it caps off, like, you can't be fully shocked, right? Because it caps off by miles the worst clay court season Tsitsipas has had since breaking out as a top player in any capacity. This was the worst clay season Tsitsipas has had since 2017. He came into Roland Garros with 6 wins under his belt. Normally, at that point, he's up around 12, 13, 14 wins coming into RG. He ends up 7-5 for the swing. And he'll fall out of the top 20. 334 straight weeks, top 20 for Tsitsipas, second longest streak amongst active players. So on one hand, what a run. That's a big number, 334 weeks. The weird part of it is he's 26 years old. He hasn't missed any significant time with injury. He played 23 events last year. He's played a full calendar last year. Now, I know that there have been nicks and issues. To say he's been 100% healthy would be inaccurate, but man, there hasn't been anything catastrophic. You can say that. He hasn't missed time. You can say that. So for a guy to be 26, no injuries, back-to-back top 5 finisher. How many top 5 finishes does he have actually in his career? I actually think it might be more than 2. But for a guy with that profile to drop out of the top 20, without age being something you can look at or injury being something you can look at, that's a little bit rare. But also it hasn't come out of nowhere. I'll say that. And by the way, here's his year. This is Tsitsipas's year-end rankings. Starting in 2019, he was 6, 6, 4, 4, 6. But the last time I think Tsitsipas has truly looked great was Australian Open 2023 when he made the final there. And I thought the 2023 season, while it ended up being okay on paper, I thought there were tons of red flags that year. Inconsistency in his focus and effort on the court, which had me concerned going into 2024. There were so many matches in 23 where I'm like, what is going on? He does not look right. So then 24, I'm like, I don't know. Like, he's got to get this turned around or it might get bad. And last year he had a terrific Monte Carlo in Barcelona, Monte Carlo in particular was an unbelievable run on paper. But I don't think he was playing top 10 tennis at any other point over the course of the entire year. And to support that point, outside of those 2 weeks, he was 3-10 against top 20 competition. And those wins were a slumping Tiafoe, Baez, and de Minaur on clay. So you go basically the whole year, other than the Monte Carlo Barcelona hot streak, where like there just aren't any good wins. And this year it's been even worse. So again, slow burn for Stefanos Tsitsipas, just a slow decline the last like 3 years in my eyes. Now, what could be the explanation? And I'll play this forward in a moment. I think it has to be some human stuff, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. You can talk about technical stuff all you want. It's the same technique as when he was finishing 4 in the world and 6 in the world. And the idea that suddenly the tour has figured him out, I think that's bogus. I mean, the tour knew exactly who he was in 2022. They knew to attack the backhand. Let's not pretend like this is some new revelation. So I think it's really about Steph and his own commitment and what he's putting in behind the scenes and how he feels on the court. You've had the musical chairs with the coaching. You've had all over the map with his equipment. You've had, a fitness trainer leave and, slam him on the way out, basically for his professionalism and his work ethic and his, perceived like lack of will. The Tsitsipas family says that was defamatory and that was total BS. And okay, I'm not saying like we're only going off of that, but if a trainer says that stuff and then the results go against that idea, go against that notion, that's one thing. But again, it's like when I say human stuff, all I'm saying is this. He's in his athletic prime. We know how talented he is. The stuff that has contributed to his downturn, and he hasn't had like tons of injuries. He's just had, a couple more like nicks and issues here and there, which also could be down to how well he's managing his body, which could be down to stuff like professionalism and commitment and all that. You just don't know. All I'm saying is like, I can't make sense of what's happened to Stefanos Tsitsipas if he is, from an attitude and commitment and work ethic standpoint, doing exactly the same stuff he was doing in 2021. I couldn't make sense of that. Maybe it's the case. I just don't really think so. Now, Goran Ivanisevic will join Team Tsitsipas for grass court season. I don't know why, because this was reported so long ago. I don't know why they were like, hey, let's wait a month and then we'll start. Just why not do it? If that agreement was in place, it's a little bit odd to me that it took that they went so far into the future, but you never know. Maybe it was a Goran thing. Maybe he wanted some more time to rest. Or maybe it was a Tsitsipas thing. They just wanted to start on the grass for whatever reason. But the larger point, the more important point, I think the world of Goran Ivanisevic as a coach. This is exactly what I've been calling for Stefanos Tsitsipas, because you'll remember also, after he split up with his father as coach last fall, I was thinking, wow, this could be a real positive step. I'm glad he did this. I think it could be a turning point, but now it's time to hire somebody. And I just haven't, no disrespect to the people who he's brought in, but they have not been authoritative figures who have been there before and are very, are kind of proven commodities who are strong-willed in an environment where there's a lot of different voices and a lot of confusion. And that's why I said, even if Dimitris Hatzinikolo is a great coach and the Muratoglu Academy people who he's been using are great coaches, they probably are. I still want to see Tsitsipas bring in somebody who can really bring in some built-in credibility. And he's done that, and Ivanisevic is awesome. So this is a great hire for Tsitsipas. Things could be looking up. I'll say this, though. If Tsitsipas is committed with good buy-in and great professionalism, I think you're going to see this last. Let me say it right now. If Steph can't sustain this partnership, like Philippoussis was on and off and on and off, it wasn't sustained. It didn't work. If this is another situation where somebody comes in from the outside and is like, this whole thing isn't working for me, I think that'd be a red flag. So this is going to be the next year in Stefanos Tsitsipas' career is going to be very, very telling. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.